Now to that deadly stabbing spree in North Vancouver that sent shockwaves across the province and the country. Homicide investigators are still trying to determine a motive for the knife attack that left one person dead and 6 others injured. Today, the man at the center of the investigation refused to leave his jail cell for a court appearance. CTV's Ben Milger joins us live from Lynn Valley Library, where the attack unfolded. Ben, what more are you learning about the suspect?
Well, Mi Jung, we know he spent several years in the Montreal area where he was once an avid boxer at a suburban gym. Police say it's unclear when or why he made his way out to the West Coast, and that will be a key focus of their investigation as they try to figure out why this horrific crime happened here in this close-knit family community. And I should warn our viewers, some of the video in this story is disturbing and graphic. In this video, shot several years ago, now 28-year-old Yannick Bandalgo shows us a day in the life of a young boxer, getting ready to train before stepping into the ring for a sparring match. His former coach at this suburban Montreal gym says he hasn't heard from Bandalgo in about 3 years.
Yannick, depuis l'âge de 14-15 ans.
He says he began training Bandalgo at age 14 or 15, and before that, the teen had some drug issues, but he went clean when he joined the gym and started training twice a day. The coach says he was heartbroken to see news of Bandalgo's very public arrest after a Saturday knife attack in North Vancouver left one woman dead and 6 other people injured.
We understand that there will be questions about the suspect and the desire to understand the motive behind this senseless act. But we are still in the early stages, and we may not be able to provide you answers at this time.
Police say Bandalgo underwent surgery for self-inflicted wounds, but would not update his condition. He was scheduled to appear by telephone in North Vancouver Provincial Court Monday morning, but a constable at the nearby RCMP detachment where he is being held told the judge he refused to come out of his cell to participate. Police say Bandalgo has no connection to any of the victims or the surrounding community, and they don't even know what brought him to the West Coast. Investigators also say nothing indicates he was radicalized.
That is not what we're looking at right now. There's no nexus for us in this investigation to believe that there's anything in relation to radicalization.
So, Ben, we see that memorial growing behind you. It's been such a difficult weekend for this tight-knit community. Now, as we know, this was a very public crime. A lot of people in the area at the time. Is that playing a role in the investigation?
Yes, it is, Mi Jung. Police still appealing for anyone who was here and saw something to come forward, but they have already interviewed 50 witnesses and all 6 surviving victims. There is also a lot of security camera and social media video for them to comb through as part of this investigation. As for Bandalgo, he is due back in court Thursday morning, should he choose to participate in the process. Mi Jung?
Ben Milger in North Vancouver, thank you. We begin with major developments on the COVID-19 front. All of the province's current public health orders are being extended right through the May-long weekend as the effort to clamp down on COVID ramps up. The government today announcing a first in its pandemic response, new travel restrictions designed to keep you close to home. And the province will roll out stepped-up enforcement. As expected, the indoor dining ban is extended through the May-long weekend. And like in other provinces, the AstraZeneca vaccine is being made available to everyone 40 and up. But first to tragic news, the death of a child, the youngest British Columbian to die of the virus. CTV's David Malko joins us now. And David, what have we learned about this case?
And Mi Jung, we are talking about a toddler under the age of 2. Just let that sink in for a moment. He or she was being cared for at BC Children's Hospital, did not make it. Here is what Dr. Bonnie Henry said a short time ago.
It is a true tragedy, and it's a reflection of the impact that this virus is having across our communities. This was unfortunately a child who was not in care. They had a number of health issues. They received the best possible care they could at Children's Hospital, and unfortunately COVID took their lives.
We also know that that young boy or girl and his family lived in the Fraser Health region, believed to be our first first death of anybody in our province under the age of 30. Certainly the youngest. Our thoughts with that family tonight as well. 8 deaths total over the weekend since Friday, mostly people in their 60s and 70s. I want to share with you one little thing. It's something that may help uplift your spirits. It certainly helped me. That is the 7-day curve. If you take a look, you can see it on the tail end here. Dr. Henry mentioned it today. We are finally beginning to bend it down. Of course, all the other big news today shows that no matter how much we do, and the vast majority of us continually are doing the right thing, it's just not enough, quickly enough. Mija.
Thank you, David. Now more on the government's extraordinary move to restrict travel as BC records nearly 3,000 new cases over the past 3 days. Police will soon have the power to conduct random checks of drivers, one of several new measures to ensure people stay in their own communities. CTV's Shannon Patterson reports.
If you plan on hitting the highway and crossing health authority boundaries, you could soon be questioned by police.
On Friday, Minister Mike Farnworth will issue orders under the Emergency Program Act to restrict people's ability to leave their health authority.
Think counterattack road checks for motorists traveling outside their health region.
They will be susceptible to all travelers, not just a few travelers. And again, they will be random, and there will be a fine if you are traveling outside of your area without a legitimate reason.
If anyone is putting forward a new measure, my question back right away, in what way is this going to get the numbers down, and how are we going to know it has worked? And this measure, to my mind, doesn't answer either of these questions.
Similar random COVID checks were introduced in Ontario on Friday.
People started questioning it, and it had to be sort of removed as a measure.
We want to make sure that public safety representatives are not going to be heavy-handed with this. They have no intention. They don't want to do this. This is for those that are recklessly flaunting the rules.
The Premier has also announced a crackdown on British Columbians still taking holidays.
Do not try and book somewhere outside of your area because the tourism operator in that community will not book you passage.
At the end of this week, BC Ferries will stop accepting bookings for passengers with recreational vehicles.
BC Ferries will also be contacting their passengers that have booked reservations to make sure that their travel is essential and is not leisure travel.
The ban on indoor dining has officially been extended through the May-long weekend, and the travel restrictions will likely be in place till then too.
We're so close, we can taste it. We need people to follow these rules to the end.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
There are still lots of questions about enforcing these travel restrictions, including roadblocks. CTV's Allison Hurst joins us now with reaction. Allison?
It's a COVID counterattack. The idea is to use roadblocks at random. So every car will then be forced to stop for a set period of time, and officers will check to see where you live and where you're going. Counterattacks at Christmas time when drivers are stopped on bridges or roads, asked if they've been drinking or driving, drinking and where they were going. Now, Premier John Horgan says these will be random audits and used to limit and ultimately ban travel between health authorities.
They will be susceptible to all travelers, not just a few travelers. And again, they will be random, and there will be a fine if you are traveling outside of your area without a legitimate reason.
How much that fine might be and what that's going to look like has yet to be explained. The BC Civil Liberties Association says there are lots of questions, such as how will essential travel be defined? Who will be covered by it? Like, what about those who take public transit, pedestrians and cyclists? They also have concerns about increased police enforcement powers to do random checks. Meanwhile, former Solicitor General and Chief of Police Kash Heed says police chiefs are questioning the legality of the order.
I don't think you can move the success of the roadblocks for drunk driving to this particular order because, again, it's almost an arbitrary detention of the individuals in that vehicle and questioning them, which has nothing in relation to a legal matter that I'm privy to. I think this is a lot of huff and puff. I think at the end of the day, you will not be able to do it.
The order is not in place till the end of the week, and we will hear more from Minister Mark Farnworth on Friday. Mijang?
Thank you, Allison. Now to the big changes to the province's vaccine program. The eligibility for the AstraZeneca shot is being expanded as officials try to avoid overwhelming hospitals. More than 400 people have been admitted as the third wave devastates BC. CTV's Binder Sudjan has that story.
Is there somebody waiting? Everyone 40 plus is now eligible to get AstraZeneca at pharmacies as some hospitals and staff are stretched to capacity.
Who are doing those overtime shifts and getting more and more concerned that there are people coming in and they won't be able to care for them appropriately.
Special units will be set up in hotspots around the province, including Surrey, North Delta, and Abbotsford.
That we're clearly at the high plus range of this right now in terms of the pressure on our healthcare system.
Expanding immunization is part of a strategy to combat what officials call a serious situation in 20 COVID units. 5 hospitals in the Lower Mainland are swamped.
Compared to January and compared to last April, the COVID-19 situation in our hospital is significantly more challenging.
Hospitals are now being monitored on a daily basis, and surge beds will be added when and if needed. Surgeries may be rescheduled. Patients may need to be moved.
And the risk of hospitalization from COVID is about 2 to 4 in 100 for most people.
This pharmacist points out the risk of a blood clot due to AstraZeneca, about 4 in a million.
The odds of getting hit by lightning are higher than getting one of these rare blood clotting side effects from AstraZeneca.
The province says those 63 and up will be the focus of the vaccine program in the coming weeks. So if you're younger than that and waiting for Pfizer and Moderna, you could be waiting for a while.
I want people to think about those nurses and those care aides and those doctors and all of the people in our front line who have been giving up every single week, every single month for over a year to keep British Columbians safe.
Getting more people vaccinated is key to stopping the healthcare system and its workers from getting overwhelmed. Binder Sudjan, CTV News, Victoria.
We begin with a heartbreaking discovery, almost too horrific to comprehend. The remains of 215 children, some as young as 3 years old, have been found buried near Canada's largest former residential school in Kamloops. Today, emotional reaction is pouring in from Indigenous leaders and residential school survivors. And a warning, the details are disturbing and maybe triggering for some viewers. CTV's Allison Hurst reports from Kamloops.
The investigation is still in its infancy as the community is still learning more details about the disturbing discovery. But the idea that remains were here has long been spoken of, but not documented. Buried near the former Kamloops Indian Residential School, a heartbreaking discovery. The remains of 215 children.
It was devastating. It was actually quite mind-boggling. And you know, it brought some of us to tears.
Some as young as 3 years old.
What was heard was, and what they were told was that when children were missing, that they were told they ran away.
I felt for all of the students that I went to school with, and then I felt for all of the parents who missed their children and they never came home. All of those little ones who were buried with no dignity at all.
The remains were found by the Tecumloops Tusek-Wetmik Band using ground-penetrating radar.
We want this to come to resolve. We want people to know that this history is real. The loss of the children is real.
The residential school was Canada's largest and closed in 1978.
The beatings that people used to get.
Jeanette Jules went there.
You hear clunk, 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 clunk up the stairs. And it's one of the security guards. And then you start hearing whimpers. And the whimpers are because here's the guy that molests people.
This discovery, reopening old wounds of the horrifying treatment of Indigenous children.
Our little ones were put on cattle trucks and brought to the school and deloused and separated from their own family. And, you know, it's heartbreaking.
And brings even more questions.
If it happened here, you know, has it happened at the other Indian residential schools? Because this was, you know, something that, you know, a mass grave like that was never marked, never known, and all of a sudden, you know, in May of 2021, it's been discovered.
At the memorial, signs and flowers are left as everyone navigates the painful path forward. These are the preliminary results. The band is still waiting for its official report. The coroner service is assisting in the investigation. Allison Hurst, CTV News, Kamloops.
Good evening. First Nations leaders are calling on Ottawa to search for more mass graves at other residential schools across the country.
The demand for accountability is growing louder, and as CTV's Allison Hurst reports, we're getting our first look inside the horror that was a former residential school.
This is a tour of the residential school in Kamloops.
Walking through the halls, Rose Miller shows ABTN News the school she once attended.
This is the heebie-jeebie place, the evil place.
She, along with her two brothers, were forced from their homes in Kanim Lake and brought to Kamloops Residential School.
We were told if we didn't pray, we're going to go burn in hell, or the Romans are going to come and rape us and burn our eyes out and burn our hands and our feet and burn off our fingernails, so we pray all the harder.
The school was Canada's largest residential school. It closed in 1978. Last week, the Tk'emlúps Secwepemc Band found the remains of 215 children on their grounds. An outpouring of grief has followed, with many bringing flowers, messages, and stuffed animals to the memorial, while Indigenous communities gather to honor their lost brothers and sisters. The Tsleil-Waututh First Nation held a drumming circle, filled with emotion as elders shared horrifying stories of their experiences at residential schools.
We need a national day of mourning so that our people can come together and do the things that we did today.
Chief Leah George Wilson also wants to see the government support and fund investigations at other residential schools.
Tk'emlúps was able to do the work that they did because they had people that wrote grants or found funding to do that kind of work. It was not supported by any church or any level of government, and that, in my view, is wrong.
The Vancouver Archdiocese with this to say.
I would like to just tell you that that's not true, what you just said. The church has apologized in many ways, and I'll tell you how. There have been, first of all, Pope Benedict formally apologized. Pope Benedict the 16th in 2009.
It's not about fixing the past. It's about what can we do to fix the now and the future, and making sure that we live up to those expectations.
Moving forward, Wilson George wants to see more Indigenous voices in governing institutions.
There is no shortage in places where Indigenous voices have not been heard. Justice, child welfare, education, and health.
The final report from Kamloops is expected in the coming weeks. Allison Hurst, CTV News, Vancouver.
This is what's left of Lytton, our first look at the aftermath of the fire that consumed the village that was home to 250 people.
I'm Allison Hurst reporting live near Lytton. The coroner is investigating 2 deaths after fire destroyed the village.
Many residents lucky to make it out alive. What we know about those still missing. Also, 70 new wildfires erupt across the province, started by thousands of lightning strikes.
I'm Ben Milger. Experts call them pyro clouds, how BC wildfires are creating their own weather, generating dangerous lightning strikes.
In Kamloops, the fire danger forces families out of 2 neighborhoods. Plus, the sudden death toll from BC's heat wave continues to rise. More than 700 people died in the last week.
This is CTV News with Mi Jung Lee.
This is all that remains of Lytton tonight. CTV News has exclusively obtained this video showing the utter destruction caused by a fast-moving fire on Wednesday. Chilling scenes of charred shells of homes, businesses, and vehicles. Here you see a burned-out semi on the side of a road in the once vibrant village. The air is still so toxic that few people are allowed in. Good evening. The people who lived in those homes and owned those businesses are now scattered around the province, wondering what happens next. And tonight, family and friends are mourning 2 people who didn't make it out alive. Starting off our team coverage is CTV's Allison Hurst live near Lytton in Spence's Bridge. Allison, there are still a lot of unknowns, making the ordeal even tougher for evacuees. And now the news of 2 people who died in the flames.
Yes, the coroner's service is investigating a preliminary report about those 2 deaths. They have yet to be able to access Lytton because, as you're about to see, the town is filled with hazards and has burned to the ground. Driving through Lytton shows sheer destruction and devastation. Nothing left after the wrath of Wednesday's fire.
This is the worst nightmare ever.
The odd street sign remains where homes once stood. Now just plots of land remain. Next to some, the mangled metal once cars driving on these streets, left behind by those running for their lives.
And I said, hurry. So, and trying to get my stuff in the car. Houses behind me, my house, pop, bang, just blowing up, burning up.
I know, right?
Just the wind was so strong.
While destructive, this fire was also deadly.
Sadly, we have received confirmation from the RCMP and the family that the 2 members did perish in the fire.
Coroner's examiners are unable to enter due to hazards lying within the rubble.
There's a hazmat crew in town. They have shut the town down due to some of the hazards they've noted, and they'll be working to clean them up.
There are still many people unaccounted for. This man says he doesn't know if 2 of his friends made it out in time.
It's Joe and Richie. I haven't heard anything from. I just hope and I pray that they're okay.
There was just minutes to leave Lytton when the fire started.
It's devastating. This is the worst feeling in the world. I've been crying for days.
The plan is to rebuild brick by brick.
The Prime Minister has said that the federal government will assist in rebuilding the town.
As evacuees left stranded across the region wait anxiously to walk these streets again. The fire is still burning, now at 6,800 hectares in size and still out of control. Mi Jiang.
And Allison, those images are really haunting and heartbreaking, and there have been some injuries as a result of the fire.
Yes, when we were speaking with the mayor, that he was telling us that there were a number of people who were injured, burned in the fire when they were either trying to leave and get out, or they were trying to put some of the fires out before they escaped. Mi Jiang.
Thank you, Allison Hurst, reporting live near Lytton. Well, we still don't know how many people are possibly missing from the Lytton disaster. Many evacuees are worried about loved ones they haven't been able to contact. CTV's Penny Daflos has more on the difficulties in tracking down those who fled the flames.
The level of destruction to property and disruption of lives is clear. What's not visible is the danger left behind in Lytton.
Some of the chemicals involved in structure fires, hydrogen sulfide, cyanide pieces, hydrochloric acid. There's a lot of stuff coming out of burnt structures that is just not safe for anyone to be working around.
Once it is safe to get into the area, first thing will be to do a thorough grid search. But at this point, it just isn't feasible for us to get into the area.
And so Mounties and the BC coroner are on the sidelines, unable to investigate whether some people didn't make it out in time.
Well, we can't get a hold of anybody because all the cell surface is down.
Communication disruptions from fallen cell towers are adding to the heartache, and the province won't say how many people are unaccounted for. Figuring out where they could have gone is hard because they weren't directed to a single community center or facility.
A lot of public spaces being used for that are large enough that can support people in our communities, are being used for vaccinations for COVID, are being utilized for cooling centers.
That's leaving the Red Cross pleading for Lytton fire survivors to call a family reunification line to register and let their loved ones know that they got out okay.
So, Penny, do officials not know how many people are unaccounted for, or are they just not telling us right now?
Well, Mi Jiang, there is a list and a tally so far, but they won't tell us anything about it. At a press conference this afternoon, provincial officials said they didn't have the number available with them, but that the Red Cross knew. So I asked the Red Cross, and they refused to tell me, referring me back to the province, who isn't answering CTV's calls or emails. Mi Jiang.
Okay, well, we'll know you'll stay on top of this story. Thank you, Penny. The wildfire situation is exploding across BC. 70 new fires erupted in the last 24 hours. Take a look at this dramatic video from Kamloops last night. There were thousands of lightning strikes in our province, many of them in Kamloops. The raging flames forced families to evacuate homes in 2 neighborhoods. Across the province, nearly 1,400 homes under evacuation order. Hundreds more warned they may have to leave at a moment's notice. CTV's Ben Milger has been following this story. Ben, some scary moments for Kamloops residents and others who have been evacuated. Ben, these lightning strikes are posing a huge danger with so much of our province tinder dry.
Yes, and believe it or not, Mi Jung, the wildfires burning in BC are burning so hot and so big right now, they're actually creating their own weather, spawning thunderstorms which then emit thousands of those lightning strikes, causing more fires in a vicious cycle that is already threatening many communities. Crews spent Friday trying to mop up and contain wildfires in and around Kamloops after a wild night that saw lightning strikes ignite multiple blazes, many of them on the edge of residential neighborhoods.
By the time I started recording, there was a fire on Strawberry Hill already. It was just instantaneous. That first bolt of lightning just ignited everything.
Susan Marr captured thunder and numerous lightning strikes over a period of 5 hours, the resulting fires forcing hundreds to abandon their homes under evacuation orders.
It was very wind-driven. There were gusts of at least 30 kilometers an hour, if not more. The temperature was still around the 30-degree mark at that time of night, and the lightning strikes in the area didn't help.
The lightning blamed for numerous fires around the province in recent days, with some of it actually caused by other wildfires. These satellite images show how dramatically a pair of interior blazes pumped hot smoke and ash high into the atmosphere, creating their own weather and spawning thousands of lightning strikes.
You have to be very mindful because these storms, when they occur, are dynamic feedback loops within themselves. And they create their own weather, and they exacerbate their own fire weather.
By Friday morning in Kamloops, most evacuees allowed to return home thanks to the hard work of fire crews credited with saving 400 homes valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
It was right on some people's back doors, and thankfully Kamloops Fire Rescue and BC Wildfire Service and RCMP were hitting it pretty hard, pretty fast. They did everything right as far as I can account for.
Well, there are no active evacuation orders right now in Kamloops. Crews continue to battle hot spots and flare-ups, worried that a shift in the wind could push those blazes back towards neighborhoods. People living close to those fires ready to leave again at a moment's notice should things take a turn for the worse. Mi Jung?
Thank you, Ben. Breaking news now on the staggering number of sudden deaths during the recent heat wave across the province. Angela Jung is live in the Breaking News Center with an update from the BC Coroner Service late this afternoon. Angela?
Mi Jung, the number is shocking. We're learning that 719 people died unexpectedly and suddenly from BC's record-breaking heat wave. The BC Coroner Service says the deaths were recorded over 7 days from last Friday through July 1st, and the number is triple what would normally be expected over the course of just 1 week. The chief coroner says some parts of the province are still experiencing unusually high temperatures, and she's reminding people to check in on family, friends, neighbors, especially those who live alone. She says this current total of 719 is still preliminary, and that number could still go up depending on how many more reports are entered into the system. Mi Jung?
All right, thank you, Angela. Breaking news tonight as we are learning the unprecedented BC storm that triggered widespread flooding and numerous landslides has now turned deadly.
Officials say multiple vehicles were swept off the road in this mudslide south of Lillooet on Highway 99. And tonight, the province confirms that 1 woman has been killed and 2 people are still missing.
Meanwhile, new video is providing more insight into the sheer destruction caused in many parts of the province. These images showing the Coquihalla Highway in complete ruins as water has washed away lanes and bridge decks in multiple locations, cutting off parts of the interior from the lower mainland.
Highway 1 has also been shut down just east of Abbotsford as water has completely covered BC's busiest roadway.
Rescue operations continued all day for people trapped by floodwaters, some taken to safety by helicopters and others by boat, with so many roads impassable.
And new evacuations have also been ordered in addition to the entire community of Merritt. Thousands are now out of their homes province-wide, some still sleeping in their vehicles, and many stranded far away from their homes, unsure when they can go back.
Good evening. We have extensive coverage on the landslides and flooding tonight. A lot of information to get to, but we start with the confirmation of one person killed in a mudslide with 2 people still unaccounted for.
This happened on Highway 99 between Pemberton and Lillooet. Shannon Patterson has more on the death and a couple who barely escaped that slide caused by the storm of the century.
It was really scary.
The photos on their phone, a reminder of how close Melissa and Dave Medeiros came to being swallowed up in a massive mudslide south of Lillooet.
It was really surreal. Kind of feels like describing a movie at this point. It doesn't really feel like describing real life.
The Vancouver couple was heading home from Kamloops Monday afternoon.
Every route was closed except for Highway 99. We decided we had to go with it and take that route.
Traffic suddenly stopped for a small mudslide on the highway.
At that point, I got out because I wanted to go see how big this mud flow that we were blocked by.
Melissa remained in the car as her husband walked out of sight.
I hear this cracking sound and I turn around and the forest is just like moving and coming down maybe like 30 feet behind me.
I was just kind of frozen for a minute, and then I heard other people start yelling, and then it just clicked that I don't know where my wife is. So I ran as fast as I could back to the car, and luckily I saw my wife honking and just the car pin driving as fast as she could away from that thing.
They managed to avoid the river of mud and debris, but saw several smashed and buried cars off the side of the highway.
There was a off-duty firefighter who really got everybody organized and got everybody gathering chainsaws and shovels and ropes and doing everything that they could to go in and help get these people out of their vehicles. And so there were a few people who came out of their vehicles. One of them looked pretty bloody and knocked up.
But not everyone made it out alive. The body of a woman from the Lower Mainland has been found in the slide.
Tragic. Deepest condolences to the family. A simple drive home gone bad for sure. You know, what more can you say? It's just a tragic event.
I'm also aware of concerns that there may be additional victims in the mudslide near Lillooet. Search and rescue specialists are conducting significant work in this area, and the RCMP will continue to remain involved in these searches.
This is the only road connecting Lillooet to Pemberton, Whistler, and Metro Vancouver. Until it reopens, the community has essentially been cut off. The Medeiroses are thankful they were able to escape with their lives.
Very happy, very lucky to be alive. Very, very happy, and lucky that my wife is still here and wasn't caught in it.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Pemberton.
And the storm having a serious impact in the Fraser Valley as well. CTV's David Malko is live in Chilliwack, which is completely cut off from the rest of the province. David, what's the situation on the ground there?
Yeah, cut off on the east, I should say, towards Hope, and on the west towards Abbotsford here. The evacuation orders, by the way, both in Abbotsford and here in Chilliwack, continuing to rise. About 2,200 homes, so 8,000 people, somewhere in there, 6,000 to 8,000 people in Yarrow, in Sumas Prairie, under evacuation order right now as we speak. Despite those orders, despite the very real risk to life and livelihood, Mi Jung, some families like the Mulders say they're just not ready to go.
From above, Ed Mulder's farm looks like it's about to be swallowed. On the ground, he points out the source of his troubles.
If it breaks, that dike breaks, then we're hooped. If it holds, we'll be fine.
Why stay? Help me understand.
I guess that's just part of being a farmer.
Because the Mulders have been here since '94, you see, on this vast plain that acts like a giant drain.
Our field would normally be potatoes, and yeah, it's water right now. It's filled up.
Inside these barns, 15,000 egg-laying hens, with just inches to go between newly born lakes and disaster.
Everything we do is based on keeping them healthy and happy, and to walk away from it, it's tough.
So this one here is yesterday, and that's this morning.
His neighbors' homes already turned into islands. These herds set free to seek drier ground. The family truck packed with nearly nothing.
What's in there?
Yet everything.
Pictures, photo albums, change of clothes.
That's everything.
It's everything that matters. This is an act of God. It is what it is. We see it on the news all the time in other places in the world, and this time it's our turn. That's all.
Incredible pictures there, David. You can hear the emotion in Ed's voice. You just got off the phone with him. What did he tell you?
You know, they were feeling optimistic most of the day. He and his wife Hester, their 21-year-old son Jake, their 2 daughters who'd evacuated. But he said, David, look, we were there, the sun was going down. I could see at the road toward the edge of the fields, the water had risen and was starting to pour over the top. He said it would be maybe a half hour, an hour before the property was inundated. So they got out of there. I said to him, good luck and Godspeed. One story, one family, one of thousands tonight, Mi Jung. Just hoping against hope.
Thank you, David.
Meanwhile, the city of Chilliwack has issued an evacuation order for the community of Yarrow, southwest of downtown Chilliwack.
Nafisa Karim is following this in the Breaking News Center. Nafisa.
Well, this is a significant evacuation order covering around 3,300 people and around 1,000 homes. All residents from Boundary to Brown Road and all of Majuba Hill have been asked to leave their homes immediately. The community was on evacuation alert, but that was upgraded to an order. A single lane on Vetter Mountain Road is available to residents leaving Yarrow and emergency personnel only. RCMP have been posted at access points to the community. Now, evacuees are being told to head to an emergency reception center at Chilliwack Secondary School. Officials will monitor water levels overnight and provide an update on this tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Nafisa.
A massive evacuation remains in effect in Abbotsford tonight as the torrential rain turned parts of that area into a flood zone, shutting down Highway 1 and leaving people in need of rescue. CTV's Michelle Murrow is live in Abbotsford with more on the situation there tonight. Michelle.
Yeah, rescues have been ongoing today. Now, behind me is a park, but if you can see the light reflecting off the water, this park looks more like a lake. The water swallowing up this park as it has so much of Sumas Prairie. About 1,100 homes evacuated, and this isn't over yet. It's hard to believe the farms, the homes, the properties, the livelihoods, all underwater. Sumas Prairie not looking like farmland, but like a massive lake. Those forced to flee stunned by how fast it all unfolded.
Within 2 hours, we went from water coming around the house to, 2 feet of water surrounding everything. We were trying to keep things together, but within minutes, everything just began up and floating away.
This is the overpass at Whatcom now. Last night, this is what it looked like. Cars submerged as roads turned into waterways. Boats with search and rescue and police trying to rescue people in a dangerous and fast-changing environment.
We had, one member had to throw in a life jacket and swim out or wade out towards a car that was overturned to bring someone back. And that was just almost on a regular basis for about 2 hours there of cars that had flipped over, people on the roofs of cars.
Families forced to flee their homes being cared for at an emergency evacuation center in Abbotsford.
This is an uncertain and scary time for people who are affected.
Many people stuck Monday night as the highway shut down. Meanwhile, 89-year-old Agito Zanardo has lived on Sumas Prairie his whole life. He says he's never seen it this bad. His daughter is saying the flooding making a difficult time for their family even worse.
Devastating. My mom's in the hospital and my dad's not well, and yeah, we don't need it. It's a real tough time.
Abbotsford's mayor says as waters from the Nooksack River in Washington state continue to push across the border, the farming community is coming together.
There are people with power boats hauling cows out of their barns to Highway 1 to dry ground.
But the worry remains high because no one knows just how long this crisis will last.
Okay, Michelle, what is the latest on the rescues there tonight? Are they still happening into the evening?
Well, we know that late this afternoon, early this evening, there was a rescue that took place. And, you know, a really frightening situation for these people. I just spoke a short time ago with a woman. She is a senior. She lives in the Whatcom Road area of Sumas Prairie with her husband, who is in his 80s. When the evacuation order came down last night, she says it was already the water too high for them to be able to escape on their own. She says they've been trying to get rescued ever since. She said boats tried to get to them, but the current was too swift. A helicopter tried to get to them, couldn't get to them. Late this afternoon, a boat was able to get to them. She says it took more than an hour to get them through the water and to safety. They're at the evacuation center tonight. They are safe. They are grateful to be out, worried about their animals, worried about what tomorrow holds, but grateful that they are out of there. Scott?